Eagle Mountain has been one of the 2 or 3 fastest growing cities in Utah for the last 5+ years now. And to be frank, it's a pain to get in and out of. It's definitely still catching up in terms of amenities, and it's got issues. And so I want to know, what's the draw, right? Why are so many people moving here? Let's talk about that. What are the pros and cons of living here in Eagle Mountain? By the way, my name is Christopher McGee. I am the owner of Halcyon Real Estate. We are affiliated with the Keller Williams Utah Market Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I help people relocate from all over the states to right here in Salt Lake County and its surrounding neighborhoods, such as Eagle Mountain. So if that's you who's interested in a move here, go ahead and pause the video, go into the video description, click on the link for a Google form to fill out. Fill that out. I'll be reaching out to you personally. We'll start getting things in order for you. Having said that, let's jump right into looking at the possible cons of living here in Eagle Mountain. Number 1 con, and I believe everybody would agree with me on this, is the fact that the time to get in and out of Eagle Mountain and the typical traffic, particularly during rush hour, makes commute time sometimes a nightmare here in Eagle Mountain, depending on where you work and how often you're coming outside of the city to do whatever it is in your life that you do outside of the city. So if we look at Salt Lake County, I-15 freeway comes right down the middle of it in pretty much true north-south fashion. As it comes from Salt Lake Valley into Utah Valley, it shifts, I-15 corridor shifts to go east as it goes east around Utah Lake. Well, Eagle Mountain is on the west side of Utah Lake. The fact that the I-15 corridor and Mountain View corridor are the only 2 north-south pathways from which you can go west into Eagle Mountain, that bottlenecks traffic here a little bit. And then there's only 2 main arterial pathways that go west from those points into Eagle Mountain itself. And that is Route 73, which is right behind us. We're at the entrance from Route 73, or at this point it's called Memorial Highway. As you go further west, it becomes Cedar Valley Highway or Cedar Fort Highway. We're right here, and this is the entrance to the front end of Eagle Mountain. The Ranches is both a golf course and the neighborhoods right around it. You come right here, you're at the beginning of Eagle Mountain, but you're going to drive another 20, 30 minutes, depending on time of day and what traffic looks like, to get to the back end of Eagle Mountain, which is further southwest. And so this is one way into Eagle Mountain. The other way into Eagle Mountain is a little bit further south. It's called Pony Express Highway. And those are really the only 2 westbound ways to get into Eagle Mountain. So what does it look like if you live in Eagle Mountain and you work downtown, or you need to get to, say, the airport? Because going from here to either the airport or downtown is gonna be about the same. If you live in the Ranches, the front end, it's going to take you about, if there's 0 traffic, it's gonna take you like 45 minutes. If it's during rush hour, it's gonna be more like 75 to 85 minutes during rush hour. Okay, so that's from the Ranches to downtown or to the airport. If we're coming from the Ranches and maybe you don't work that far, maybe you just work in Lehigh, okay, and Lehigh is just east. If you live in the Ranches and you're going to Lehigh and there's no traffic, 20 minutes. If it's rush hour, and guys, this is just a couple of boundary cities away. I'm looking at the back end of Saratoga Springs. Just the other side of Saratoga Springs is Lehigh, where a lot of people work in the tech industry. And so if we head that way and it's rush hour, from Ranches, it's gonna be like 45, 35 minutes still. And that's if you live in the Ranches. Now, what if you live in the back end of Eagle Mountain? Your time from the back end of Eagle Mountain to downtown or the airport, if there's 0 traffic, is easily an hour or a little over an hour. If it's during rush hour, 95 minutes, 100 minutes, that's more like what we're looking at. What if I live in the back end of Eagle Mountain and I work in Lehigh? Well, if there's no traffic, you're still looking at 35 minutes. And if there's traffic, if it's rush hour, you're still looking at over an hour, 60 to 65 minutes to get from the back end of Eagle Mountain just to Lehigh, right east of us. So imagine, if you will, at either of these routes into Eagle Mountain, a traffic accident during rush hour, it sucks. That's going to take another hour plus of your commute time if there's a traffic accident on Route 73 here or on the Pony Express Road. This is the number 1 complaint people have about living here, or just the idea of living here. Okay, so con number 2 of living in Eagle Mountain is gonna be the relative lack of amenities. Now, there are some hiking and biking trails in the Lake Mountains to the east and the Ochre Mountains to the west of Eagle Mountain, but it's nothing that holds a candle to, I mean, there's definitely no ski resorts the canyons, the trees in the mountains. It just doesn't hold a candle, like I said, to the mountains along the Wasatch Range that line the East Bench of Salt Lake County. That's one of the biggest reasons people love being in this area. Not Eagle Mountain, but in Utah, right? Is the outdoor lifestyle and the opportunities. There's no skiing around here. You're gonna have to go way east. There's not a lot of, it's not the quality of hiking and biking trails around here that you'll get on the East Bench. And so that's one issue. Another issue is the lack of amenities in terms of like things to do. Now, we've got a Walmart here. There's a Macy's grocery shop further southwest of us. You're not gonna have to leave Eagle Mountain for like basic needs at all. My brother-in-law lived here about a decade ago, and he always complained, and that was a decade ago, so it hadn't experienced near the growth that it's going through now and that it's been through in the last 5 years. But he always complained that there were like 2 restaurants to go to, and he wasn't really exaggerating. That's improved much since then. So at this point, you've got Mo Betta's, you've got pizza places like Pizza Hut and Domino's, you've got T27, that's a great taco place, you've got Chipotle's, you've got all kinds of restaurants now that you didn't have then that are just, and then you've got all the like typical Utah little places to eat and drink. There's people in Utah love soda and mixing sodas. There's all kinds of like fizz drinks and like, what's another one? Swig is a big one around Utah. So you've got that here. There's like random cookie places all over the place because it's Utah. You've got all that here. It's getting better. But if you wanted higher end, like steakhouse, you're not finding it here in Eagle Mountain. The growth in Eagle Mountain has not been random in terms of who comes here. The fact that we've got mostly new builds and that it's as far away from where most people want to be as it is means that the price points here are a little lower. And we'll talk about that as one of the pros to being here in a moment. But what that also means is that the type of people that end up buying homes here are first-time home buyers and young families. People not as established in their wealth yet, right? What that means is there's a much higher percentage of people under 18 years old that live in Eagle Mountain than in pretty much the rest of Salt Lake County. All up and down the East Bench of Salt Lake County, from Mill Creek down to Holiday, down to Cottonwood Heights, Sandy, Draper. The average number of people per household in all of those cities ranges between 2 to 3. It never quite makes it to 3 actually. In Draper, average number of people per household is like 2.9, and that's the highest of those cities. In Eagle Mountain, where it's over 4 per household, that tells you something about the demographic that lives here. 72% of the households in Eagle Mountain actually have residents under the age of 18. So again, just telling you a lot about the nature of the demographic here, which leads us to con number 3, and that is relatively overcrowded schools. The schools here are struggling. We've got a teacher to student ratio of like a teacher for pushing 30 students in a classroom. That leads to slightly less efficient and less effective teaching, as you may know. So Cedar Valley High School, for example, gets a B- from niche.com, and it scores between commendable to typical on the school report card website that I often refer to. That is common throughout all the schools here in Eagle Mountain. So we're here at Frontier Middle School, Mountain Trails Elementary School I looked up, Eagle Mountain Elementary School that I looked up, obviously on the name there. But all of them are very similar on their grading. They're all around B-. I saw nothing under B-, by the way, but it was all B- and B. The school report card website always landed between commendable to typical. It even tilted away from typical. I don't remember what that category was called though. It's important to take into account though that all of these schools in Eagle Mountain score on a scoring data set called growth between commendable to exemplary. And growth doesn't mean the number of people, the population of the school. That's not what it means. This scoring bit of data measures how well kids' comprehension improves in each subject year over year. So it's improving here and the teachers are good, and it's all part of a good school district. Alpine School District covers the entirety of Eagle Mountain, but it can be a possible con if you're looking for the best possible schools for your kids. Well, those are the main reasons that a lot of people choose not to live in Eagle Mountain. And the third reason, with the relatively higher crowding in schools, that's not even a reason most people don't want to be here. That tends to be something they find out once they get here. But what are the pros? What are the draws? Why do people choose to live here in Eagle Mountain anyway? Let's look at those reasons, and number 1 on the list is definitely going to be the lower cost of housing. So there's this principle in real estate called drive till you can buy. And since city centers tend to be where most people have things happening, that tends to be where most people want to be close to with their housing. And so that increases demand in that area. And so the further away you get from an area of high demand, the more affordable the housing gets in general. That's this idea of drive until you can buy. So what's the spread of prices look like for housing here in Eagle Mountain? Well, we've got anything from $260K for a 3-bedroom condo, and we're just gonna stop right there a second and consider this, okay? In every other city that I have covered and given you a price range on, and I've made dozens of videos introducing you to cities and various neighborhoods, the lower end price point has always been close around $250K, but it has also always been for a 1 or 2-bedroom condo. In Eagle Mountain, it was a 3-bedroom condo I just told you about, right? $260K for a 3-bedroom condo. And that's because the builders just knew the demographic that they were building for here as they built out Eagle Mountain. So I did find a 2-bedroom condo on the market here in Eagle Mountain, but it wasn't the lowest priced option. We go anywhere from that $260K at the low end of our price points here for a 3-bedroom condo, right? Up to the highest price listing in Eagle Mountain right now is selling for just under $2 million. And that $2 million comes with a full acre, it was just over 6,700 square feet in the home. It's got an attached ADU. The basement is a full mother-in-law suite, separate entrance, separate kitchen, separate laundry, all of that. And it's just got, you know, luxury finishes throughout like you would expect and hope for in a $2 million home, right? We've got paint, lighting, flooring, cabinetry, counters, all luxury, higher end finishes. This is listed, by the way, by Joshua Wagstaff with Wasatch Land Advisors, LLC. Now, that's the spread. In Eagle Mountain right now, there are 442 homes available for sale. That 442 is probably coming from a confluence of data that I look at week over week. Right now, it's the end of July 2026. Every Monday I'm looking at data, and I've been seeing ever since, generally from the beginning of 2026, a growing split between the amount of homes available on the market and the amount of demand that we have, okay? And I measure demand by either the number of homes being sold week over week and or the number of homes under contract at any given time. Just tells us how many people are buying homes, how many people are getting into deals to buy homes, right? We are at a point right now where our supply is peaking while demand has remained relatively flat and subdued and even trended down a little bit. And that's good news for buyers. And the pace at which building was happening here in Eagle Mountain definitely reached a high point in the very recent history of Eagle Mountain's building at the same time that demand throughout the state has become subdued. So we have a lot of available homes here to buy, and they're stretching, like I said, between $260K at the lower end of the price point and $2 million at the upper end of that price point. By the way, of those 442 homes available to buy, only 12 of them were at or over $1 million. Average price point here in Eagle Mountain right now is about $535K. Medium price point is about $515K. Both of those numbers are significantly lower than what you'll find anywhere in Salt Lake County. This is probably the #1 reason that people are moving out here to Eagle Mountain. So price point of housing is definitely #1 reason to be out here. Let me list off a few other ones real quick though. Proximity to the Wasatch Fault Line is a real concern for a lot of people that live in Salt Lake County. That Wasatch Fault Line is far, far away from Eagle Mountain. In fact, for most of Eagle Mountain, you have a whole range of mountains in between you and the Wasatch Fault Line. It feels a lot safer from what a lot of people in Salt Lake County feel like must be just an imminent earthquake. And by imminent, really, we're all clueless and don't know. When you track the data points of how many earthquakes we see evidence of along the Wasatch Fault Line, not all of them happen in Salt Lake County. And when you average it out, it's like 1 every 200 years, but sometimes it's like well over 750 years before an earthquake happens from the last one. So we're past that 200-year average mark for an earthquake along the Wasatch Fault Line. Like I said, that is a real concern for a lot of people who choose to live there. And if you're gonna be in Eagle Mountain, not a concern at all. Another big pro to living out here, the cleaner air. So we've talked in a lot of the pros and cons videos that I do of a lot of the cities in Salt Lake County. We've talked about how Salt Lake Valley is this bowl between 2 mountain ranges where cold air and pollution gets trapped during the winter, and we get that winter inversion. The pollution can be really bad and gross. You won't get that out here. First of all, the elevation is a bit up. It's like right at the edge and above where inversion tends to happen. More to the point, it's not stuck in that bowl. There's room for the air to move out of the areas where Eagle Mountain sits. It sits just at the entrance into the Cedar Valley in Utah County. And so the air can move. It doesn't get stuck here the same way. The clean air is not a problem in Eagle Mountain. Another big pro to Eagle Mountain, it's very safe and family friendly, as you may have guessed from the demographic we've talked about that lives here. Also, the fact that it's so far away from city centers where most people tend to want to be, that means that, like, first of all, it's Utah, it's Salt Lake City, not known for gang activity, right? But for what mischief that does happen, the crime rates are higher closer to city centers and downtown. There's just zero here. Look up crime on Eagle Mountain, and whatever the crime is gonna be like whatever the dumb teenagers decide to do when they're bored on Saturday nights. You know what I mean? That's gonna be the extent of the crime here in Eagle Mountain. It's just beautifully family-friendly area. It's a bedroom community. The other positive for Eagle Mountain in my book is that it has a beautiful golf course, the Ranches, which we'll have to make a video on sometime in the future, but that's a very nice golf course. So if Eagle Mountain seems like the pros outweigh the cons for you, if this seems like a place where you could dig the vibe and this seems like the right place for you and your family to settle down, reach out to me. Again, if you haven't yet, now's a perfect time to go into the video description and click on the Google form link that's right there. Fill that out. I will reach out to you personally. We'll start getting things in order for you. Thanks for watching this one, you guys. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye, bye-bye.